All right. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm Winks. I'm a member of the NHFA board, and we are so excited to have you all here with us today, whether you're live on Zoom or you're watching this virtually in the future. We just really appreciate you being a part of this community and supporting not only the NHFA, but the wonderful work that folks are doing. Much like the work of our speaker, who I am very excited to introduce. This month's webinar is on end-of-life care through the eyes of hospice and end-of-life doulas with Adrian Allotey. Adrian is not only an end-of-life doula, but also the founder and owner of You Are Not Alone Elder Care in New Jersey. Adrian, thank you so much for joining us today. Audience members, if you wouldn't mind staying muted during the presentation, and just holding your questions and comments till the end. Though please feel free to use the chat if you just want to jot something down and throw it in there. We'll look through the chat at the end of the presentation. But without further ado, Adrian, the floor is yours.
Yes, so thank you so much for having me. You know what I think of the organization. You all do great work, and so I am delighted to be here. When you are asked to put questions, seriously put questions. That's always the best part of a presentation, and you can ask me anything. I'll answer with integrity, and if I don't know an answer, we'll somehow get it to you. And so let me begin with my presentation. So can you see that? Okay. Tell me. Can you hear it?
Just going to talk to me and I'll just answer. All right, I'll report on here. I'm Adrian Allotey, and I am an end-of-life doula. I assist those who have an advanced stage illness. I can provide that understanding to people that death is a natural process. It's not a medical one. My job is to relieve the person who's taking their last breath. I create what's called a living well plan, and that documents the emotional, mental, spiritual wishes for the last hours, days, and weeks of life. When it comes to thinking about death, it's hard. We have so much to live for. We have our loved ones, we have our activities that we do. I tell people that there's no one way to die. I also tell them that there is no good or bad death. I hold their hand through it, and I help those that they leave behind to create a new normal. I was always a funny kid. I enjoyed the elderly. I enjoyed talking with them, sitting down, having ice cream, and just doing special things that the other neighborhood kids wouldn't stop to do. I have a 106-year-old grandmother who has since passed away. Her name was Elizabeth Green. She was the matriarch of our family. The home meant so much to her because she had come to New Jersey from the South. She and my grandfather worked so hard to maintain the home. Everything just went together so nicely, from the carpeting to the color on the wall. Her only desire in life was to stay into her home. The last 2 weeks of life, she had to leave that home. She went to a really nice medical environment, but there was no one there who was guiding us, talking to us about her emotional, mental, and spiritual needs. There was no one who was educating us or supporting us. My grandmother had a 20/20 impact on what I do now. So I was able to look back and say, wow, now that I know how I help people, this is what we did not have. There was once a time where it was just the person who had the advanced stage illness and myself in the room. I had told the family members to go lay down and get a good night's sleep so that way they can be well rested in the morning. So I found myself in the room thinking that I would just sit and maybe hold her hand and maybe play some slow music. I just felt as if the moment was telling me to get up, put on these really jazzy type songs, and to get up and dance. That's what I did. I listened to the moment. I got up and I danced with the person who was in the active dying phase. I danced around her bed. As I danced, her pulse continued to increase. Just knew that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. Society would say, why are you dancing in the middle of the night? When I know that things are supposed to happen, I don't question them. I just go along with what that moment calls for. And as the words are coming out of my mouth, I find myself rising up. I don't think this is by accident. I think this moment is valuable and that it's teaching me something and it's teaching you something too.
I think that the best way for me to show you how well hospice and doulas complement each other is to tell you a story. So I'm going to share with you Susan's story. I'm going to go through the phases that you see here, moment by moment, stage by stage. We're in a decline phase. Susan is an 87-year-old married woman with 5 adult children, all of whom live close by except for one son who lives in California. She and her husband have been married for over 50 years and have a wonderful relationship. Her husband, aged 90, is in overall good health. Her adult children adore their parents, but there is a lot of conflict amongst themselves. There are no formal advanced care planning documents that can be located. Susan's daughter, the only girl of the 5 children, has been providing the primary care and decision making for her mom. The brothers question and complain about every decision that their sister makes. Although Susan's husband is unhappy that his children don't get along, he makes absolutely no attempt to settle the conflict. Susan's wish is that the family can come together in her illness. The brother, who lives in California, pays for all aspects of his mom's care that isn't covered by insurance. Susan was diagnosed with Parkinson's 10 years ago. Over the illness, Susan's Parkinson's symptoms got worse. At this point, she is in the most advanced stage of Parkinson's. She is in the most advanced stage of Parkinson's. Her limbs are extremely stiff. She is immobile. She goes from the bed in the morning to the recliner to the commode throughout the day and back to her bed at night. Susan is experiencing anxiety, depression, insomnia, and fatigue. She can no longer speak nor swallow. As a result, she has a feeding tube, which has caused quite a few trips to the emergency room. There have also been additional trips to the emergency as well. Susan's daughter has since left her job at this point due to the complexity of the family issues and disease overall. And it's not surprising that her own health concerns have developed as a result for caring for her mom. At this point, the PowMed team meets with Susan and documents her care goals and coordinates with the medical team for system management and a referral to hospice. After interviewing a couple of hospice organizations with the family, a hospice organization is chosen. Now, I have to tell you that there are times when an end-of-life doula may be on a case, a part of a care team, prior to hospice coming in. And their job is to educate the family on hospice and all of its benefits. But in this particular case, hospice was there first. Hospice stabilizes Susan's physical care, but realizes that the arguments between the adult children are increasing and affecting Susan's well-being. Susan is becoming very fearful of her life coming to an end, and her husband and some of the children appear to be in denial. The hospice team, having heard about an end-of-life doula, mentions it to the adult daughter. The adult daughter shares that her aunt had an end-of-life doula who really helped the family tremendously a few years ago. She is definitely in agreement in bringing in an end-of-life doula. And although the brothers are quite hesitant, the one in California agrees to pay for the end-of-life doula services, as he, like everyone else, really does want the best passing for his mom. And he, unlike others, really do want the siblings to come together per his mom's request. The doula was brought in to obtain and record Susan's beliefs and wishes as it relates to end of life, in hopes to minimize the immediate sibling discord, empower Susan with education, choices, and giving her a voice in her end of life experience. And most importantly, to enlighten the family, the children, of Susan's end of life wishes and her belief system as it relates to end of life. So the end of life doula holds a family meeting first to discuss. New Jersey's Department of Health's website has a very simple advanced care directive that should be completed by Susan. So the end of life doula creates also an additional plan on what Susan wants for her active dying phase. The discussion with Susan and the end of life doula occurs over a couple of visits in a separate room from the family. The doula holds a family meeting to discuss. This was the result of all of the time that she met with Susan. Susan would like her adult daughter to make all healthcare decisions for her if she ever gets to the point where she can't make them for herself. If she isn't able to transfer, she would like her bed to be moved into the living room so that her family and loved ones can be around her in her final moments. Susan is only comfortable with her daughter, hired caregivers, her husband, and just a couple family members providing personal care. She wants to be cared for with kindness and joy and absolutely no sadness. Susan's greatest wish is to be comfortable. She doesn't want to be in any pain or discomfort. She wants her pain managed with medicine and healthy alternatives to medicine, even at the cost of being drowsy and or sleeping more. Susan would like light touch. Her hands should be held, and she should be spoken to even when she doesn't respond to the voice or touch of others. Susan was adamant about maintaining her dignity throughout her time. She wants to be cleaned, in a pretty dress, moisturized, and polished nails. She does not want any photos taken during this time of her life. She wants her family around her telling stories and jokes, reading poems, religious scriptures and readings, and praying, of course. She wants everyone to be happy and not sad around her. Susan didn't request music in her final moments, but it was noted by the family that she enjoys traditional Catholic music learned at an early age by those in her faith. It was decided by the family, which Susan included, that her son-in-law will call two of her sons if they aren't present to inform them of her passing. The hospice team really appreciates the doula's perspective and shares the doula reports at their meetings. The doula extends an invitation for all to meet at the house and perform a dress rehearsal of Susan's last moments, days on this earth. The team gets a clearer understanding of Susan's desires as a result of having the dress rehearsal. The doula realizes that at this point, Susan is in the stabilization phase. And this, in the doula's eyes, is a time to get things accomplished and really to have some fun. Together, they create a plan for her husband after Susan takes her last breath. A plan for the first 24 hours, 3 days, 7 days, 1 month, etc. They discuss special rituals with the family for the time period when Susan takes her last breath and before her body is taken away. And of course, sibling harmony techniques are practiced and shared. They discuss and plan for her memorial services. The doula purchases essential oils and items that will create the ambiance that Susan is seeking: lemon, lavender, and peppermint, and battery-operated candles. The doula oversees a process to remove all unnecessary medical equipment. She oversees setting up a room where people who are sad can go, where the family can meet with the medical personnel, and for anyone that isn't able to support the environment that Susan is seeking. She identifies online places and a couple of books that the family members should look through and research poems, Bible verses, and songs to be shared at Susan's bedside. The doula supports the family with the checklist of recommendations based on Susan's desires. 1, confirm the completed list of people who need to be informed of Susan's final breath and who they will call. Reach out to the following organizations to advise of the current circumstances and move forward with as much as feels right, not only for the family, but for Susan in particular. She may want to invite the organizations into the home so that they can meet and see her as a person, and so that she can be included in the process. Again, only if it feels right. The work that I'm discussing here is the pre-memorial work that can be done. The less that is done prior to Susan's last breath, the more that is done before Susan's final breath, the less that will need to be done after it. Do not let the organizations overwhelm you and turn the communications into a sales pitch. So, who are the organizations? She should reach out to the funeral home, the Catholic cemetery, as well as the Catholic Church. Consider a social media policy to share with friends and family. Determine if Susan wants to be involved in writing her eulogy, creating her memorial program, and or even picking out the pictures for the program or the presentation at the memorial services. Either way, the family may want to begin gathering and writing this information. Again, the more work that is done now, the less that will need to be done later. And again, I can't stress enough, only if it feels right in the spirit of the family and Susan in particular. Place pictures in the living room of Susan's family and loved ones. Again, think about how important it was for Susan to be around her family in her final moments. The following should be considered and decided amongst the family as a possible means of enhancing Susan's comfort. And keep in mind, if the siblings cannot get along, they should consider a visiting schedule, agree on visiting codes of contact, seek support from the hospice team, the social worker in particular, and I also shared harmony techniques. One being the greatness in me recognizes the greatness in you. Giving each other heart-to-heart hugs, and also using tapping. There's also technique if we sometimes just simply stop and ask ourselves, what am I telling myself in this moment? Is it true? What is the evidence? Do these thoughts serve me, my family, and the moment? And am I able to change these thoughts? Again, as opposed to the siblings saying things that they may, expressing discomfort or, whatever it is that they're feeling, just taking a moment to stop and ask themselves those questions. We also discuss the body leaving the residence and how they want that to occur, and if the body should be driven around the family's primary residence. Susan's beliefs on being remembered, celebrated, and honored at the end of life. Susan absolutely wants her memorial services at her church with the request of her head priest presiding. Susan wants to be buried at the Catholic cemetery where her family is buried. And she absolutely wanted to go out in style with a lot of flowers as part of her memorial services. Susan enters into the active dying phase on a Friday night. The care plan was put in place based on the dress rehearsal. The doula received a call around 8 p.m. and arrived within the hour. She sat vigil with Susan and the family. The room was dimly lit with candles. The essential oil diffuser was on while soft music played from the doula's phone softly in the background. Everyone told stories and laughed. The doula gave the daughter permission to get into bed with her mom for part of the night. The doula stayed woke throughout the night, with only one other granddaughter staying woke with her. Everyone else eventually fell asleep. In the morning, the doula made breakfast for the family, cleaned the kitchen, and discussed the planned checklist before going home to sleep herself. When she arrived again on Saturday night, Susan was still in the active dying phase. She prompted the family members to sleep as she sat vigil throughout the night. She wanted the family to be well rested in the morning and promised them that she would wake them if anything changed with Susan throughout the night. Each vigil is really separate, and they're all distinct and unique in their own ways. But in this particular case, I found myself dancing to jazzy songs throughout the night around Susan's bed. The hospice nurse arrived to announce Susan's death and stayed for about an hour supporting the family. The doula opened the windows to slow down the physical changes of Susan's body. The immediate family members continued to sing songs, say prayers, read Bible verses and poems, and wept in the separate room set up by the doula per Susan's request. The woman in the family gave Susan a final bath. Extended family members dropped by to say their goodbyes. The funeral home arrived hours later, and the doula walked the body out with the funeral home reading Psalm 23. Some of the men in the family followed the casket out the building. The funeral home was directed to drive the body past Susan and her husband's permanent home one last time. So if you will Recite with me if you feel comfortable, just to honor Susan's story. Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He lead me beside the still
Besides
waters.
still waters,
He restored my
he leadeth
soul.
my soul.
He leadeth me in the
Lead
paths
me
of
in the path
righteousness.
of righteousness for his name's sake.
Yea, though I walk through the
Walk
valley of
through
the
the
shadow,
valley of the shadow of death.
I will fear
Don't
no
fear
evil.
no evil.
Thou art with
Art
me.
with me.
They rod and thy
By
staff,
my
they
staff, they comfort me.
thou
They prepare
preparest
a table before
in
me,
the
in the presence of mine enemies.
thou anointest my
Anoint
head
my head with oil,
my cup
and my
runneth
cup
over.
runneth over.
Surely goodness and mercy
Goodness and
shall
mercy shall follow me all the days of my life.
follow me, and I will dwell
I
in
shall
the
dwell
house.
in the house of the Lord forever.
Thank you. So, again, an end-of-life doula is a non-medical professional that provides holistic support for the dying and their loved ones before, during, and after death. They are trained in the various end-of-life stages and is able to assist the family with an understanding of the natural processes of dying while giving comfort and providing support. So there was a point in time where, according to my understanding, the hospice sort of thought that doulas were trying to take over their work. We are now at the point, I will gladly say, that there is the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization in this day recognizes the role of the end-of-life doula. They even have an end-of-life doula advisory council, which provides information and resources to their community and the general public to promote awareness and understanding of the end-of-life doula. They are out there educating on the benefits of doulas for dying people and their families, using them. They also, each hospice is different, but they incorporate doulas to this day into their existing services and informs them on how they can access, again, outside doula providers. Many times you'll see that hospice will use them as volunteers, and in some states they actually pay them. And then some states there is a combination where they will have their aides certified as doulas. And so in each state it really is different. Again, I can't stress enough that I always tell my clients that if hospice is not on the scene, to please consider hospice because they handle the medical part of end-of-life care. The hospice team manages the care of the terminal patient. The nurse teaches the loved ones on how to provide care when she's not there. But we know what happens sometimes. Sometimes a medical person will tell you what to do, and as soon as they leave the room, you may forget. And a doula is there to remind them to call that 800 number or to refresh their memory of what the nurse has said. They are also the eyes and ears for hospice. The biggest difference between hospice and end-of-life doulas is that doulas get to linger. So if there's a change, no matter how small, they will alert the hospice team. Small changes in people's circumstances usually is an indication of something bigger that may happen. So we just want to make sure that everyone is aware and that someone is on standby. Again, the hospice nurse is the medical manager of the terminal patient, but because they do receive Medicare and Medicaid funding, that sometimes their time there is limited based off of those reimbursement guidelines. Both hospice and end-of-life doulas have the whole person philosophy of care. They both attend to the emotional, mental, and spiritual aspects of the patient and the caregiver, and then extend it out to their family and friends. Doula is simply an additional layer of support to the person who has advanced stage illness and their families. And again, they get to linger with no time restraints or any type of time limitations. Many people will ask me, who is overseeing doulas? Is there a national organization that regulates the standards and scope of practice of end-of-life doulas? And I always say yes. We have the National End-of-Life Doula Alliance, which has a national practicum with core competencies for the practice of professional end-of-life doulas. Those doulas are given an opportunity to take an assessment. If they pass the assessment, they receive national credentialing, and but either way, they can become a member of the national organization. Again, it's called NEDA, which is the National End-of-Life Doula Alliance. So some of the services that a doula may do, now keep in mind that each doula can be different based off of the background that they are bringing into the work that they do. So the services that are normally the ones that you will see, but again, each doula is different. And as I have shared, the Living Well plan that I in particular do with my clients. And what that does is it documents the emotional, mental, and spiritual wishes for the last hours, days, and weeks of life. I use the term vigil sitting in Susan's story, and that's simply sitting bedside during the active dying phase to ensure a peaceful transition. And then I mentioned respite care, allowing the caregivers and the family to take a break and get some much needed rest, as we know that caregivers need. We also conduct life reviews, which validates a person's life through the examination and documentation of their decisions, roles, contributions, and impacts on their family, community, and world. I have a saying that I live by. I never want someone to walk into my client's space and see the disease before they see the person. And having those conversations about their decisions in life, their roles, their contributions, and impacts makes it so much easier for them to see the person first and not the disease. Remembrances, the creation of artifacts that document their time on this earth that they can give to loved ones and offsprings for generations to come. So the easy example that I can think of that is that I once had a grandmother who wrote out cards for her granddaughter, and for each year that she could open, and she insisted that a $5 bill go in each one. I tried to get her to 10 as the granddaughter age, but she wasn't going to do that. And then also, as you see, educating the family and the person with the advanced stage illness on funeral and life celebrant service options, and assisting in the planning and resources as culturally appropriate. And so I will take any questions that you may have. This is the part where we dialogue. Okay, I do see some in the chat. Let me look at those first. All right, nice video. Someone is driving. So you can unmute yourself and ask any questions that you like at this time.
Adrian, I'm going to jump in, not with a question so much as just saying thank you so much for sharing this wonderful story, and also that video. I was just so amazed at it's so artistic and beautiful. I really appreciated you sharing that video. So thank you for that.
So I am at people's bedsides over and over and over again. I have so many experiences and different lessons that I have learned as I continue to do this work. And so I am almost begging you to take advantage of that. I know that there are usually questions that people think of as it may relate to a past death that they experience. And so I'm going to ask you before I continue to talk, does anyone have a question where you want to unmute yourself or put it in the chat?
Hi,
So,
I put it in the
oh,
chat, actually. It was about how you acquire clients, and if you could speak a little bit about your how you price it. Is it by hour? Is it by package? If you could speak a little bit about that, it'd be really helpful. Thank you.
sure. So let me ask you, Penny, are you interested in the work? Can I ask you what brings you here today before I'll answer?
Yeah, sure, sure. Actually, I um am in a huge transition in my life right now, and I just gave notice at my 30-year job on Monday, and I start my classes at UVM on next week for death doula classes. And in the meantime, I'm working on a website and a business. I'm in San Diego, California. It's called Living Farewell, and the crux of it is let's celebrate people before they pass. My son just told me he went to a celebration of life that was a PowerPoint and cold cuts. And I'm like, we got to do it better. So we're working on basically funerals before people die and letting them kind of put together what they look like and all that. So, anyways, I'm diving deep into death work, but I'm trying to be smart about it, scale it, get some credentials from UVM, and then have at it.
Right. So let me just tell you my story. So I actually was in a job of 22 and a half years, making extremely great money and a $5 copayment. Now I always tell people I probably could have walked away from the money a while ago, but I was holding so tight to my $5 copayment. I love taking my children to the doctors and all that good stuff. We would go for like you stub your toe, well, let's go see what's going on here. So I really believe in taking care of myself from a medical health standpoint, and so I held real tight. But I realized that that particular job just simply wasn't bringing out the best in me, and so I was trying to figure out what to do, because anytime that you don't, you're not in balance, it's your job to figure that out. And so I became a Reiki practitioner, and I thought that I would, Google Reiki jobs, and I Googled, and I got a bunch of volunteer work in the hospice. And I said, well, that's not what I'm looking to do. I'm looking for some money that I could walk away. And so I went back in there a month later, and everything was volunteer again. So I said, you know what, give it a try. I gave it a try. And when I walked through my first door to help someone that was on hospice, just something just went off. And so I actually worked with this was back in, I'm not good with years, but 2017. So that gives me 6 years doing the work. I worked with one hospice place, and for about maybe a year or maybe a half a year, and then I worked at another one. So I was volunteering at 2 local hospice. And I actually walked away from my job in 2018, wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And I decided to go back and get certified. Now, one of the hospice would send me on the most difficult cases, most challenging ones, because they saw the great works that I was doing. And so they actually sent me back to get certified, and they paid for it. So one end of life program I paid for 18 months, another one the hospice paid for. And so I guess my You Are Not Alone was acquired in 2018. So whatever those amount of years are, 5, 6, I don't know. I can't keep track of years. And so I'm going to be completely honest with you. Most of my clients find me. So I'm in, many different places, and those who understand and appreciate what an end of life doula find me. And so because I walked away from a job, what I started to do was to come alongside people before there's an advanced stage or terminal illness. So when we went back to that decline stage, when caregivers are overwhelmed and the person who has that I'm going to bring in as a client, when they can't live the life that they desire, I come alongside of them and I support them. I create individual care plans that allow them to bring about that quality of life, because I believe that each and every moment is equally valuable. And so what that allows me to do is to sprinkle those end of life concepts over a period of time. And what I have found is that really works, because we all know that hospice are not taken advantage of like they should be, that people go on too late or don't go on, that the numbers are really, the low numbers, are really shocking. And so I would say the same thing about end of life doulas, that people don't want to talk about end of life, but I can come alongside of them much sooner, be that friend all the way to the end. And what I have found is that when I do that, it empowers people that they may not even need me until the last, they might not even need me, I'm sorry, they may not even need me towards the end. And so they don't even have to invite the amazing Adrian Allotey into that sacred space, because they have been empowered to be able to handle it. Now I may get a text or a phone call or something along those lines, but to be able to be empowered where you don't have to call the end of life doula during that active dying phase, to me is really a success. And so so that's really, I do a lot of marketing. I'm out there, I do a lot of talks. I'm also a deaf professor at this particular time, teaching on a university level. As far as pricing, I have some packets, and the more hours that they commit to, the less the pricing. But I have to be honest with you, if they don't use my hours for whatever reason, I usually return the money back to them, unless they want to donate it for someone who maybe can't afford my services. And so if they if they come to me with the decline, I give a monthly package. If they come to me towards the end, I just give a package of hours. So I think that's it. Yeah. I do see another one. So how long? I think I answered that. 2017, I started being a volunteer doula, and 2018, I started my business. It's really a lot of it's a lot of talking. I have a huge social media presence. I give away a lot of free training on social media. I go and create events on Eventbrite. It really is just about getting out there and sharing the information. I don't do much marketing. I'm sorry, I don't do much networking, like one-on-one, let's meet up and network. What I do is I build relationships with people. And a lot of times my relationships are volunteer work. So I am affiliated with many organizations that I really believe in. I will go alongside of them and volunteer. And that's also how I get the word out there. But it allows you to, when you network, for me, when I network with someone, I'm not sure that I trust them enough one time to put them in one of my clients' homes and close the door and I'm on the other side. So I think it's about relationships. And so that's how I've chosen to build relationships, to come alongside people who are working with the same population and who are, have the same goals and mission and vision as I do for the aging population.
Adrian, can you hear me?
Yes.
Question for you. Tell me what kind of responses you're getting. Is hospice welcoming to you? Or in the beginning, was that something did you have to prove yourself before they would believe in you? Because I'm in Texas and we've had hospice here a very long time. But when I talk to them about coming in and talking to families, because I've been a funeral director for 35 years. And now so I see families after the fact, but I'm wanting to start this doula process after my retirement now and offer it to them. But are the hospices receptive? Because at least the 2 or 3 here that I visited with, they feel like the act of death and dying and funerals and pre-needing and planning is all something their chaplain does, even though they don't.
So, yeah. So we know that the chaplains go like once a month or if there's a need, but it's a challenge. Like they have a lot of cases, and the hours are very limited as well as with the social.
Mhm.
So the first
Exactly.
time that I was in a home with a hospice, I love to sit at medical personnel's feet because even though I don't do medical, it allows me to pick up on the terms and ideas and suggestions. Not that I will ever, try to use them, but at least I'm aware of what's going on around me. And
Yes,
so
exactly.
the home I was in with hospice, um, I made some suggestions. Well, first I sat at the nurses' feet, right? Like, because they are doing some amazing work.
Mhm.
And I made a couple suggestions and it wasn't well received. Um,
Yes.
suggestions were is exactly what the family needed. And at the end, the family came back and told me, you were right with those suggestions. They weren't received as much. It was almost like who are you and what are you doing? But again,
Exactly.
what is it really about? It's about that we do share the same vision. So that's one person, right? In one hospice. In New Jersey, we have a bunch of hospice, like more than you
Yes.
could count. So when I'm in
Yes.
a you see, I'm in different working with different hospice. Um,
Mhm.
the other piece of it is it's about the value you bring. So if you make their jobs easier, if
Mhm.
you if you help the client along and they see the end result, they are going to welcome you. And so again, like I said, when you see, you're the eyes and ears. So when you see something, if you can give them a heads up, if they see the benefits in their and the person who has advanced stage illness and their loved ones, they're going to recognize you and respect you. I only in that particular case, that was the only time that I ever had like not the best experience, but I was still kind of new too. So maybe it could have been the way I said something. Yeah, I can't just put it all on the nurse that was in that particular space, but the family
Mhm.
did come and say, wow, you were right on target.
Good. Good. Okay. So,
And so one of the gifts that I bring with that Reiki experience is, you know, my higher power told me not to call it Reiki anymore. So I'm just using that term because you may be familiar with it. But I do have energy healing uh, skills. And so sometimes I myself am able to pick up on things before they become obvious.
yes.
The energy will indicate like there may be something going on in a certain person's part of their body. Maybe I will be able to pick if the medical team can't figure out why a person is uncomfortable or in have some type,
Agitated. Yeah.
yeah, it may be something that's more emotional, spiritual, or mental. And that's when I'm
Yes.
able to talk to the person and say, listen, how does this resonate with you? And usually it's a tear because if I picked up on something, it's usually something there.
Right. Exactly. Okay.
Adrian, this is Anita, and I'm a doula in San Diego, and I'd like to also address some of Kate's questions, if I may, in that to remind you that hospice is paid for by Medicare, and so unless they have a foundation that supports the payment of doulas, they usually don't have doulas as part of their service. So you have to understand the entire dynamics of the
Sure.
industry.
Well, and we had, at least in Texas, a few years ago, the Medicare laws changed as far as what they would pay for. They would pay for hospice care, but they wouldn't pay for home health care. So all of a sudden, we went from having 100 home health agencies and 3 hospices to having 100 hospices. They all added hospice to their name so that they could be paid for basically doing the same thing they've been doing. So I've seen that transformation between home health and hospice. And it is very challenging a lot of times because a lot of families don't know what to do. They call us at the funeral home and say, the hospice nurse said we needed to call and make arrangements with a funeral home. when in reality, the hospice nurse has simply said, do you know who you want us to call? And have a very good relationship with our largest hospice with community. And I've been able to visit with them and talk to them and lunch with their chaplains and their social workers and become friends with many of them and simply say, there's a misunderstanding amongst families. When you ask them what funeral home to call, you need to make those arrangements. They call us in a panic saying, I've got to come over today and make daddy's arrangements before he dies. And I've told them that no, you don't have to do that. They just need to tell you who to call. So I'm very fortunate in that I've been able to educate some of the hospices, but I also appreciate very much and understand the fact that hospice doesn't typically pay for this. So it's going to be an out of pocket for the family. But thank you for that. I appreciate that thought process very, very much. So I'm just kind of starting it here. I don't know how much we have in Fort Worth. I have done some research and Googled a little bit, and I know we all shudder when we hear that word, but because Google is kind of like, oh no, they found it on Dr. Google. But uh, I've
let
only
me
found 2 here in Fort Worth, so I'm kind of anxious to reach out and see what we may be able to do to expand here.
so let me just add to that conversation, right? I think
Yes.
that I live in the state of New Jersey, and I think we are very fortunate. I'm very fortunate to live here. And one of the things that we're a lot of legislation. So I'm speaking with our executive branch. I'm in communications with our legislators, and
Mm-hmm.
there is some pending legislation about getting doulas compensated in the
Mm-hmm.
state. We've done that for our birth doulas, and there is
Mm-hmm.
pending legislation for end of life doulas as well. And so,
Good.
are there any other questions that I can assist anyone with while you have my ear?
Hi, Adrian. I am Anika, and I am here in Jersey as well. Hi, everybody. Um, I was just wondering if you can speak a little bit more about legacy work that you do with your clients. You did mention a couple things about remembrance projects. Um, but yeah, if you can just give some more examples of legacy work.
Sure. Thank you for that question.
Sure.
One of the things I'll say is that um, I have found in each of my cases that I work with, time is limited. So it
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
needs to meet a particular need. Um, and so a lot of my legacy work outside of the remembrances is more, that's the life review I talked about. It's more, like the oral history. I do have some, simple, projects that I could do. I wouldn't say that I go into depth because I do find that time is limited. And as great as legacy work sounds, um, people are exhausted. They don't have the time. It could be, looking at photographs, arranging them. I did do, um, put together. I can't think of the word for some reason, but the word that people like to do with the pretty pictures and making them so nice. And so it's a
Slideshow.
a lot of it for me is really like more oral. I do have some templates, that's the word I was looking for. But I really haven't done that. If someone is really interested, I mean, I've done video, simple video recordings as well. If someone's interested in a really in-depth legacy project, then I have some resources that I can refer them to. But I really don't find that to be the case.
Okay, thank you so much for your feedback about that. I'm definitely new to being an end of life doula. I trained with Anelda in 2020, but I haven't done any work as yet. So, I can say that the legacy work part of it was the scariest to me. And I was thinking huge, large, but I'm so glad that you said, sometimes simple is what really works for your families because there is a time constraint at times. So thank you. Anything?
Anika,
part of
Yes.
that could also be, excuse me, sorry, Kate, part of
Okay.
that could also be, rearranging or doing, repurposing what they already have in place. So one of the things I talk to my clients about is that, as opposed to you passing and people receiving what you have, maybe do you want to, share it while you're still living? Um, and so it could be just a simple repurposing what they already have in place, organizing it, making it easy for the next generation to be able to access, those documents, those pictures, that sometimes are stuck away in a books or a box or under the bed or in the back closet. So
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Adrian, a tip that I might share, if I may, that helped me a lot, because as I said, I've been a funeral director for over 30 years. And you're right. You're absolutely right. Anika, getting started with a legacy can be overwhelming and intimidating. But the simple question that I have posed that kind of helps people get started is, if someone was coming to your memorial service, or if they were reading your obituary or life story, what are the things about your life you'd want them to know if they didn't know you? And that allows people to open up and start talking about themselves. And I have found that's to be a much easier and a simpler way to open up that conversation and that window than just saying, tell me what you want, tell me about you. What do you want? What do you want your obituary to say? Have you written it? But if someone didn't know you and they were reading your life story after your death, what are the things about you that you would want them to know?
Thank
And then let
you.
them answer.
yeah, and
So maybe that will help.
one of the things I just want to share too, you're going to get the people that you're meant to serve. So
Yes.
maybe you may receive the people who may be really interested in legacy work, but
Mhm.
Okay.
people that you're meant to serve with the gifts that you have are the people that will come to you. And so, there are so many lessons that I have learned. And as I learn the lesson, those are the people that sort of show up to teach me. So it's sort of like a reciprocal.
Mhm.
And so the ones that you're meant to serve are the ones that will find you.
Mhm.
True. Anika, this is Anita in California again, and of what Adrian is speaking is absolutely truth. The right people will find you.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
the other thing is, some people have very, very simple things, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. It could be a basket of shells that they've collected from beaches all over the world, and they've had them, and they want the friends, while they're saying their goodbyes or they're having their celebration before they have actually died, they get to pick a shell, or the client gives them a shell that they want them to have. It doesn't have to be, as I've gone through, I think 3 trainings, and Anelda, I know they show this big book that was written and how all that, for the legacy. It doesn't have to be that big.
Okay. Thank you.
And so if I could just piggyback off of what I shared as well. So my winning formula is I take really good care of myself. I open my heart space. I tap into my higher power, my intuition, and I serve. I listen to the power of the moment. So when people are shocked at what I'm able to provide, it's because the moment has spoken to me. And so if you, you know, it will speak to me. And so the example of the shells, that was what will rise up in me, and that'll be exactly what that particular person
Mhm.
needs.
Mhm.
It's just using that intuition to know exactly what to say and do. You can come prepared. You can have all the training, but to be able, in my eyes, to be able to serve, there has to be a power greater than yourself, to be able to really, I call it alignment, right? If I am in an alignment, the people that I'm supposed to serve will come, and I'll serve them in the way that they need to be served because of that particular alignment that I'm in. And so to walk
Mhm.
away
Thank
from
you. I
a career
received
of
that.
22 and a half years, to be able to do this work, it has to be about alignment.
Mhm.
You have
Thank
to
you. I
take care of
received that.
yourself
I
first.
understand that.
Okay.
So are there any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, so if there are no other questions, I don't have anything else necessary to share.
Adrian, one maybe good closing question. If someone does think of something that they'd like to ask, is there a good way for folks to contact you after the webinar?
Thank you for that. So here I am, Adrian Allotey, and the Life Doula. My company is You Are Not Alone Elder Care, LLC. And there's my email address. And I am on all social medias. And my handles are YANAEC LLC. So it stands for You Are Not Alone Elder Care. So YANAEC LLC on Instagram, Twitter or X or Facebook, you name it, I'm out there. TikTok. I think you have to actually Google on LinkedIn, but you actually have to spell it out. You Are Not Alone Elder Care. But it's been a delight. I appreciate the questions and the feedback and all that you all had to share as well. So again, I'm grateful to be able to serve in this capacity. And I thank you for the time. I thank the National Home Funeral Alliance for the work that they're doing. It's amazing, like as I said in the beginning, and the humblest of gratitude.
Thank you, Adrian. Thanks for giving of your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian, and thank you to everyone. I hope you have a great night, and we will be posting about next month's webinar once we get everything all set for that. So stay tuned on social media.
All right, thank you.
All right, goodbye, everyone.
Mm-hmm.